And Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi has addressed about 500 delegates gathered at the Bishwood Hotel in Boksburg for the 4th annual Labour Conference. This is where the delegates are also taking stock of 25 years since the formation or the introduction of the Labour Relations Act into the country. The minister also talking about labour practices that are unsavoury, saying that we need to take stock of where we are in terms of the labour organisations or organisations that are poised to defend the workers on the ground, those organizations that are posed to also ensure dispute resolution that would be in favor of the workers that are in need of intervention. But I'm going to bring him in now, the Minister Thulas Nxesi, to just let us in on how important is it that we find ourselves here and also his contribution. We saw you, Minister, addressing those that are gathered here, and we know very well that this is very important in terms of just marking 25 years since the formation or introduction of the Labour Relations Act. Welcome to the SABC.
Thank you very much. It's a very important conference to look back, look at what has been achieved by this institution and what have been the weaknesses in terms of the workers' rights. What is key is it is the workers' rights who are the most vulnerable against the powerful employees. And if you look into what has been happening 25 years ago, even before you can talk about organizational rights, you can talk about the right to bargaining, the right to fair dispute resolution. Workers had to start by fighting for this fundamental right. That's why it is in the Constitution. But now practically what does it mean? We had to put this particular institution. And I think the legal experts who are gathered here together with the policymakers, with the leaders of business and the unions, is to exactly look into the successes and even the failures. But what I can tell you is this institution has made a mark. This institution is well known, even if it means you have to go into the most remote rural areas. This institution is known when you're talking about unfair labor practice. Well, in the rural areas, we still have to talk about, is it accessible to all? I'm very worried, especially in the farms, because there's still a lot of exploitation of the farm workers. And it's something which we have to talk about. But also, the issue of the informal workers, there's still a lot. Our system responding to such informality? I think those are the issues we'll be talking about.
The CCMA also talking about the challenges on the ground in terms of a lack of commissioners. There are a few commissioners that are in the employ. Also talking about basically the cases that are prolonged at the labor court and the labor appeals court where the worker is being victimized. Is there some sort of intervention from government in terms of those that have been raised here, those issues that have been raised here, to ensure that the stability in terms of those resolution and the intervention by organs like the CCMA?
You know that prior to, I would say, this COVID-19 pandemic, our economy was going down. And you know that we've lost a lot of workers who have lost also a lot of jobs and so on. But the reality was that the economy was going down, and it means the revenue for the state was shrinking. And it was very difficult for the government to balance things. However, it's becoming very clear now that if we want to be serious about this issue, we will have to increase the resources for the CCMA. We will have to find a way of increasing the resources for the labor court. It can't be workers stay 3-4 years without their cases having not been resolved because they're jamming at the level of the labor court. These are the issues we have to address, but also look at the other constructive way of how to deal with simple disputes and see if we cannot be able to put another institution which will fast track these issues and CCMDs with very heavy disputes and so on. So indeed it's a great concern, the issue of the resources which must be increased for these institutions if we want the workers to enjoy their rights.
And finally, on my end, Minister, in terms of the public sector strike that is looming large in terms of the certificates that have now been acquired by the unions that have been working and discussing at the bargaining council, just rejecting that 3%. What is your take on that? And is there a way that government and the employees can meet each other so that the matter doesn't even end up at institutions like the CCMA?
We had an offer which was rejected by the public sector unions, and we went into facilitation, and there was some facilitation, and then there was an improved offer which has been taken for consultation by both sides. I know that there's only one union which has rejected, in fact 2 unions who have gone into saying they have the certificates, we will leave it to them. But the majority of the unions are still interacting with us. But what we want to caution is to say, whether people are talking strike or whatever, there's nothing which is going to resolve the dispute unless people sit down and engage and look at the ways of settling the dispute. But thus far, we're not talking any strike. We're still talking engagements at the level of the bargaining chamber.
Minister, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. That is the Labour and Employment Minister Thulas Nxesi there, just letting us in on the government's role at this conference here. And also, you had him there touching base on the issues that are looming in terms of the public sector, really frictions there where workers are not happy with how negotiations have been going at the bargaining council. This is a 2-day conference that has kick-started, is well underway, and there are a lot of officials that are here that are set to also address. But then at the moment, it's back to you in studio.